Please be seated. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Put into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch. And do not be afraid, for now you will be catching people. In this morning's gospel, Luke describes what happened at the lake of Gennesaret, another name for Galilee. Along the shore, a crowd of people had gathered there to hear Jesus preach. But there were so many people present that they began to crowd him. So he got onto the boat of one of his friends and went out a little way from the shallow waters to preach to the crowd. Afterwards, Jesus asked Simon to go into the deeper waters and to cast out his net. Now remember, Simon and his other fisher partners were ready to call it a day. They had been up all night trying to catch fish, but they had come up empty. Simon's fishing partners were already on shore cleaning their nets and ready to go home. Everyone had seemed exhausted and were done for the day. So I can't help but think about Simon and how he may have been a little miffed by Jesus asking him to go out and try again. We get a sense of Simon's trepidation, but also his loyalty, as he says to Jesus, "Master, we have worked all night long, but have caught nothing. Yet if you say so, I will let down the nets." And he did. And look what happened. They caught so much fish that their boat nearly sank. But then Jesus said something interesting. He said, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you'll be catching people." Now, truth be told, I don't like fishing. Maybe I'm too much of a city person and don't have the patience to sit there and wait, hoping to get a little tug on my fishing pole. So this story had me thinking about fishing. So I did some research. I had no idea all it took to prepare, to go through, and to learn just to fish. Some of the things I learned: how to choose bait, how to make fish bait, how to set the hook, how to set the drag, how to cast a bait caster, how to reel in fish, how to land a fish, how to release a fish, how to clean a fish, how to keep fish fresh, how to store it, how to scale it, and how to fillet it. Now, if that wasn't enough, there are different ways to catch certain types of fish, like sea trout, bluegill, lake trout, bluefish, fluke, and salmon, just to name a few. It seems odd to invest so much time and effort into so much uncertainty. I would rather go to McDonald's and get a Filet-O-Fish and just call it a day. Another reason why I'm not fond of fishing is that I'm also afraid of the water. I've never felt comfortable not being able to see what was underneath the surface. Deep water can be so dark, ominous, spooky, and mysterious. The unknown scares the heebie-jeebies out of me. And this is partly the reason I have not been able to learn how to swim. But that's a sermon for another day. So if you were to ask me to go fishing, especially in the deep part of a body of water, I would respectfully say, "No way, Jose." But put into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch. And do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching people. Today, Jesus is asking us to go beyond our comfort and into the deep areas of the water and to cast out our nets. He's asking us to venture outside of ourselves and to go out into the world, to places that may be unfamiliar or places that we may not understand, and patiently wait. Wait for what? Fish? No. At the end of today's gospel, remember, Jesus says, and saves the best for last, From now on, you'll be catching people. In the first century, Jesus cast out a wide net and inspired a movement. He created a community of followers whose lives were centered on God and who were committed to living a way that reflected God's unconditional, unselfish, sacrificial, and redemptive love. Before they were called church or Christians, this movement was simply called the Way. Throughout history, we've had leaders and preachers who have described the Way and what it means to catch people and how to create a kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Our presiding Bishop Michael Curry invites us to not just live as a church, but as the Episcopal branch of the Jesus movement, the ongoing community that follows Jesus into a loving, liberating, life-giving relationship with God, with each other, and all of creation. Bishop Curry's vision for the Jesus movement, or the Way, resembles the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's call to create a beloved community. Dr. King's beloved community was a global vision in which all people could share in the earth's wealth. In the beloved community, poverty, hunger, homelessness would not be tolerated because the way of Jesus and human decency would not allow it. Racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice would be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of humanhood. Love and trust would triumph over hatred. Peace with justice would prevail over division, misunderstanding, and hate. Through all the protests, death threats, hate towards him, and suffering of his family, Dr. King was asked, how did he keep his work going? And how did he maintain hope? He said, I've chosen love because hate is too burdensome to bear. He added, the end is reconciliation. The end is redemption. The end is the creation of the beloved community. It is this type of spirit, this type of love that can transform opponents into friends. It is this type of understanding and goodwill that will transform the deep gloom of the old age into the exuberant gladness of the new age. It is this love which will bring about miracles in the hearts of all. Remember, do not be afraid. From now on, you'll be catching people. As followers of Jesus, builders of this beloved community, and pilgrims walking along the way, how can we become the catchers of the people that Jesus wanted us to be in today's world? Anna Marie mentioned in her sermon last week that all you have to do is watch the onslaught of breaking news on the cable networks and see the darkness and the deep division in our world today. We don't have to go very far to see it. We can see it in our cities, in our states, in our nations, in our world. And sometimes we can see it in our own families. During this time of division and darkness, we may ask, what are we fishing for? It seems like the more advanced we get with technology, the more complex and demanding life becomes. And the more we can just click our way through life, just floating above the shallow surface. But unlike being at the lake, those of us on dry land and in the comfort of our homes can quickly bypass the parts of life that we find too deep, too scary, too complex, and too uncertain with just a simple click. I have seen this in many people, many families and friends. They say, I don't engage with and stand with others, other cultures or religions because it's not me. They don't support gender equality because they happen to be a male, so why do they want to get involved? Or they walk past and ignore the homeless and in their minds say to themselves, they probably made a wrong decision and they deserve their fate. In today's world, it's easy to click past the struggles of those that Jesus said were our siblings. I believe Jesus meant that by catching people, we were to venture out into the deep, to set our fishing poles with love as the bait and our arms as the nest. And some of you know, I'm the Senior Director for the Center for Social Justice at Glide. At Glide, we have our fair share of praise and criticism. Some people love our work. Some love our work as long as they don't have to see us doing it. Some tell us that by feeding people who are hungry, we are perpetuating the problem. Some even say that our perspective of unconditional love and radical inclusivity is somewhat bogus and unsustainable. However, we thought we were just doing what Jesus had asked us to do 2,000 years ago. Now, if 2,000 years is not a good and sustainable run, I don't know what is. One Sunday several years ago, 3 bald white men marched into the Glide sanctuary and sat in the very front row with swastikas painted on their forehead. They had come in as Reverend Cecil Williams was giving his sermon, and as always, his sermon was about unconditional love. These men startled many of the members of our congregation. Several ushers walked over to try to remove them, but Cecil said, "No, back away, let them stay." For several consecutive weeks, these men showed up with their swastikas painted on their forehead and sat in the front row. Until one Sunday they returned, and they sat in their usual spot, but this time without the swastika painted on their forehead. After the service, Reverend Williams asked them why they had taken their swastikas off. One of them replied, "We had heard about this church that proclaimed unconditional love, and we didn't believe it existed. So we came to prove you wrong. But after coming week after week, we realized that there was such a thing of unconditional love. And you and your community proved us wrong." Today, one of those men continued to come to Glide services. Do not be afraid. From now on, you'll be catching people. As a newly ordained deacon, I often get questions on how it feels. And I kind of find it hard to explain the awesomeness of being an ordained member of the clergy in our faith tradition. I tell them that I feel a sense of joy when, with the power of the church, I can let people know that they're loved. And let them know that no matter what, through their joys and their sorrows, this faith community will catch them. Epiphany is an example of a community casting out its net and catching people. You have taught me, and you have caught me. You've caught others in this church and outside this church's building. I came here a shy, nervous seminarian last May, and now I leave as an ordained deacon with a bigger family and a lot more love in my life. You cast, all of you, cast your nets and captured my heart. Thank you for catching me, for walking with me on this journey. These past 8 months, I've learned a lot. You've taught me how to be a community through our Sunday services, coffee hours, seekers, baptisms, weddings, and funerals. You've bid farewell to longtime friends who are moving away and those retiring to spend time with their grandchildren. Chris and Ron Paris, you were the first to say hello to me on that morning on May 9th, 2021. Thank you for your graciousness and warm welcome. To the clergy, Melanie, Anna Marie, Haley, God, you've given me so much. You provided me with encouragement and support. I'll never be able to thank you enough. But I know I'll be a better deacon and servant of the church because of you. Thank you all for giving me a chance, for having faith in me, and to dare to go deep with me. Thank you for using love as your bait and casting out your nets to catch me, and for being so good to me during this time. So on behalf of my parents and my ancestors, thank you. I'm eternally grateful, and God bless.